All right, everyone. So this video should be a little bit of a review for you. Before we get into problem solving decimals or any problem solving, I figured that it was a good idea to make sure that we were all on the same page. To me, the most confusing part of this process is figuring out what to do when you have a positive or a negative decimal. So that's where we're going to spend a chunk of our time. So to do that, we're going to start off with a problem. So let's start with this guy here. What we're gonna do, let's go here instead. Nope, here. Third time's the charm. All right, me in the bottom corner. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this problem here. So this guy here is 2.65 plus a negative 3.81. We're gonna do two things. One, we're gonna practice estimating, all right? So we're gonna estimate what this value is gonna turn out to be, and then we're gonna actually calculate it. That's our process. We're gonna estimate first, and then we're gonna go ahead and practice calculating. So let's start off with estimating. Now, the first thing I like to do is, I'm a very visual person, if you haven't figured this out already, is I like to draw a number line so I can visualize what's happening. So let's call this 0, 1, 2, 3, which means our 2.65 is sort of sitting somewhere around there. Ooh, let's take me off there. Right there where the dot is. So sitting right around there, and that's sort of our target point. That's where we're starting. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take away, when we add a negative, we take away 3.81. Now, because 3.81 is bigger than 2.65, what I'm thinking is that it's going to go past that 2.65. So if I started at 0 and went to 2.65, that 3.81 is going to take me past the 0 into the negative. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a negative number. Now, let's do this. In order to estimate the number, we want to round our two values to nice numbers that we can work with easily. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a stab. We're going to start with this 2.65 here. All right, and the video is going to pause. I want you to take a stab. What are you going to round this guy to? Ready? Go. All right, so I'm going to choose 3. And I'm choosing 3 because 2.65 is close to 3. It gives me a nice whole number to round up to. So I'm going to choose 3. Okay. Now let's do the same thing with this 3.81, or sorry, negative 3.81. What are you going to round the negative 3.81 to? Go ahead. So I'm going to round down to negative 4. All right. So I'm taking a negative 3 plus, or a 3 plus a negative 4. And we're going to calculate that. That's really easy for me to do. That's going to be negative 1. We started here at 3 with our estimate, and we're going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to put me somewhere right around negative 1. So there's my estimation. So now let's go ahead and let's actually solve this problem. So here we go, negative 2.65. Once again, I've got a number line here. So let's go ahead and put it on the number line. So 2.65 is going to put me right around there. So that would be our initial move there. Now we're going to go down, like we're subtracting, negative 3.81. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw that into our calculator here. So let me pull up the calculator here. So here's calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch in 2.65. Okay, there's my first number. Now, my question here asked me to add, right? We're adding. So I'm going to enter it in exactly like I would here. There are other ways we could enter this in, but I'm going to enter it in exactly on here. So 2.65 plus, and now I'm going to put a negative. Now you can put the brackets or not put the brackets. I'll put the brackets so it looks exactly the same. So there's a parentheses. And now I've noticed that for some of you guys have been pressing the minus button. If your calculator has this negative button, let me move it up here so you guys can see, negative button like this, which a lot of your scientific calculators will, you use the negative button instead. So we're going to go 2.65 plus a negative 3.81. So I punch that in, I close my parentheses, I hit enter, and I end up with a value of negative, let's switch to a pen, of negative 1.16. So negative 1.16, which is really close to my guess of negative 1. So when we add a positive value to a negative value, it's the same thing. We could write it this other way as saying 2.65 minus 3.81. When you add a negative, it's just like subtracting that same number. All right, the opposite of that same number. So a 3.81. So our answer is negative 1.16. All right, did you guys get that when you punched it in your calculator? Let's try another one. So here we've got negative 5.96 minus a negative 6.83. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to estimate. So here we go. Let's fill in what we would here. So our first value is negative 5.96. What are you guys going to estimate that value? What are you guys going to round to get us close? Go ahead, put in your answer. All right, so I'm going to round down to negative 6. All right, did you guys put the same thing? I'm going to choose negative 6 because it's the closest here. I want to get as close to the value as I can and still give me a nice number. All right, so negative 6 minus, now let's round this guy here. So what value are you going to round this guy to? So negative 6.83, go ahead, what would you round it to? All right, so I picked negative 7. So here's what we've got. We've got a negative 6 minus a negative 7. That's what we're going to use to estimate what this value is going to be. Now, here's the little trick here. Whenever we subtract, let me get some different color. Whenever we subtract a number, all right, it's the same thing as adding its positive, or sorry, it's opposite, I should say. It's positive in this case, but adding its opposite. So I've got a negative 6. It's the same thing as saying negative 6 plus a positive 7. Sometimes people will just go through and they'll draw a line through on both of them. Negative 6 is the same as negative 6 minus a negative 7 is the same thing as saying negative 6 plus a positive 7. So here's the question. What is your estimate going to come out to? I'm going to let you fill it in here. If you use these numbers here, negative 6 plus a positive 7, what's your estimate going to come close to? Go ahead. All right, so when I do the estimate, I've got negative 6 adding a positive 7. Notice this positive 7 is bigger, or the 7 is bigger than my 6, and so I'm going to end up somewhere in the positive. I'm going to say I'm going to be pretty close to positive 1. There's my estimate. All right, so let's calculate it. We'll do the same thing. Negative 6 is down here, or negative 5.96 is down here, somewhere really close to negative 6, down at this end. All right, and now we're going to subtract a negative 6.83. Now, remember, when we subtract, it's the same thing as saying plus its opposite. So I'm taking negative 5.96 plus a positive 6.83. So that's going to put me from here, 596, 683 is bigger than 5.96. So I'm going to end this way. I think I'm going to end up positive. So let's go ahead and plug that into my calculator. So we've got a negative. Notice I'm using the negative sign here. So I've got a negative 5.96 minus, I'm going to enter it in exactly like I have it on here, minus a negative 6.83. I punch those in, and I end up with a positive 0.87. So a positive 0.87. That's really close to the value that I estimated just before of that value of positive 1. So we go past the 5.96, go back to 0, and then we go past it a little bit until we end up at, moving this way, positive 6.83. All right, so hopefully that makes sense for you. Here's what I want you to do. We're going to try a couple practice questions just to make sure this is locked in and ready to go. Use the Google form. It'll self-grade so you can quickly get whether you're on the right track or not. I'm not going to ask you to upload your work for this one. This one we're just going to practice and make sure you've got the right value. So good luck. Give it a try.